Good evening, everybody. Here we are back at TrueSports.com. We're going to have our weekly rankings here. We're going to go with the running backs, the tight ends, and the team defenses in this episode. And we're going to get started right away. We're going to bring you the tight ends. By the way, David Guru Hughes here with my one of my best friends on earth. My brother, basically, Al, a fan. He's helping me out after I've had some issues, and so we got the rankings up for you, and he's gonna blur them out starting right now. Al, if you would take it away.
You bet. We'll start with tight ends. Tight ends kind of come and go from year to year. You never know who you're going to get in your top tier. But now with virtually all the drafts being over and the season kicking off tomorrow or later today at this point, your tight ends are drafted. So hopefully you're able to get one of the studs early, or you waited around and you found your stud later. So there'll be a couple new studs this year for sure. But we'll kick off the list first with number 1, Mark Andrews, who was number 1 tight end last year, so that's a good place to start in week 1. Our number 2 tight end this week is Travis Kelce. So we'll see how he does with the new look offense there, and with Tyreek Hill gone, no longer drawing some of those coverages. Then we have George Kittle going up against the Chicago Bears this week. Then we have Kyle Pitts, number 4, and is certainly probably most people's top pick. If there's going to be a new number 1 tight end this year, he's the most likely. He very rarely plays the tight end position. He lines up out wide like a wide receiver in most sets. So Pitts is, I don't know that he'll be paid like a wide receiver in his next contract, but hopefully they'll recognize the fact that he's really playing wide receiver. And the guy is enormous and still runs a 4.4. So he's really special.
Amazing.
Then we have T.J. Hawkinson out of Detroit at number 5. Number 6, Darren Waller. Darren's season could go either way. He can either get round back into top form or kind of fall in the middle of the pack again. So we'll see what he does this year. He got off to a hot start. So we'll see what he does this year. Then we have Dalton Schultz at number 7. Number 8 is Zach Ertz. Number 9 is Pat Freiermuth, second-year tight end, who is another one of those who could emerge depending on how things go. Number 10 is...
Yeah, he sure looked last season.
Yeah, he did. He's got the talent. It's going to be a matter of if that offense clicks or not. And I expect 2 different offenses this year from Pittsburgh. I think they'll kind of start off one way and then transition into something else, and that may be due to a change at quarterback. So we'll see what happens with them. But they may kind of go from very run-heavy early to more of a passing team later. Number 10 is Dallas Goedert. Number 11, Dawson Knox. We get to see him play in the opening game this year, so we'll see him on Thursday night. Number 12 is Hunter Henry. I almost said Hendry. Number 13, Mike Gesicki. Number 14, Noah Fant. Number 15, again, another one of those tight ends that, if healthy, could emerge and to be one of this year's studs. And that's Irv Smith Jr. from Minnesota, number 15. Number 16, we have another player here who could emerge in Cole Kmet for Chicago. If you got him very late, and probably will be one of the better picks at tight end this year.
He did look really.
Yeah, he's a very talented player.
Yeah.
Number 17, Evan Ingram. Number 18, Tyler Higbee. Again, opening up on Thursday night. number 19, Robert Tanyan, and number 20, David Njoku. So that rounds out our top 20 tight ends. I don't have a whole lot more to say about tight ends, but I do like them more than kickers.
The thing about tight ends, there's going to be 5 guys on that list at the beginning of the season that won't be on there, not due to injury, just lack of production. And there's going to be, 3 or 4 guys, maybe 5 guys that will emerge. It's not on the list to start the season that will come out of nowhere, and they will be every week starters in fantasy. It's just a position you have to keep your eyes on. If you don't have one of the top 3 or 4 studs, then draft a couple and play it by match.
It happens with the quarterback position most every year too. Some of those guys that don't even make it into our top 25 rankings, either they're a backup or just someone that no one expected it from. It starts to click for them and they kind of come out of nowhere. I don't think you're going to see what we saw years ago when I was one of my first few years playing fantasy football. Trent Green got injured on his new team. He left Washington and went to play for the Rams, and he got injured. And he was their big signing to be their starting quarterback. And so he got a career or a season-ending injury in training camp. And they went to their backup grocery bagger, who was Kurt Warner. And it took fantasy players. The guy was throwing 3 and 4 touchdowns a week from the beginning of the season. And in those days, it took fantasy players 3 or 4 weeks before that we were just waiting for him to stop being good. And now he's in the Hall of Fame. So he just never stopped being good. I don't see
people wait for Marshall Faulk. He had a phenomenal season that year as well. But, everybody figured that Marshall Faulk was really going to have to take over after the starter went down with injuries. And, man, I'll tell you, passing, and they never missed a beat in that offense. They actually might have been better.
Well, they were.
With Kurt.
They have. Trent Green. Kurt Warner is a Hall of Famer, and Trent Green's Trent Green. He's handsome, but that's about it.
He's a hell of a quarterback, just not Hall of Famer.
Yeah, no, he's in the Hall of Good.
Hall, very, very good for a long, long time.
Yeah, and like I said, he was handsome, but that's about it.
All right, man. Well, let's transition on real quick. Knock these out. The top defenses and special teams for this coming week. If you would get us going with that, knock us out the top 20.
I can burn us through those real quick. Number 1, Ravens D versus the Jets. Number 2, Saints D versus Atlanta. And then number 3 is the inverse, Atlanta versus Saints. Number 4, Buccaneers versus Cowboys. Number 5, Panthers versus Browns. Number 6, Jaguars versus Commanders. Number 7, 49ers versus Bears. Number 8, Eagles versus Lions. Number 9, Commanders versus Jacksonville. Number 10, Chargers versus the Raiders. 11, Seahawks versus Broncos. 12, Steelers versus Bengals. 13, Bills versus Rams. 14, Cardinals versus Chiefs. Number 15 are going to be the Giants, and they're playing the Titans. 16 is Dolphins, and they're playing Patriots. Number 17, Rams versus Bills. Number 16 is Jets versus Ravens. I'm sorry, that was 18. Number 19 is the Vikings versus Packers. Number 20 is Raiders versus Chargers. And they have just 2 things I would add there. One is a long-term D and one is a short-term D. If you're streaming this position, as a lot of people like to do, if you don't have to pay for your waiver wire, the Rams D is a very good D for a season-long defense. They're probably ranked anywhere from top 3 to top 5 for the season if you're going to hang on to him for the season. If you're looking for a streaming defense to start the season, one that didn't make the list, but in my estimation for week 1 could be a top 10 defense, and for week 2, so they're a really good streamer. You can hang on to them for an extra week. There's 2 of them actually. One didn't make the list at all. I don't think that was the Colts. The Colts are starting off against Houston, and I like them in week 1, and I think they have the Jags in week 2. So they are, if you're looking to stream a defense, that's one that you can get. If they weren't drafted, hang on to for a couple of weeks, and then if you're streaming, then just move on to whatever the new hotness is. But the Rams are certainly somebody you could hang on to for the whole season. I like them a lot, depending on where you can get them in your draft, or where you got them in your draft, or waiver wire.
That the rest of the team and teams for week 1, and now we're going to spend a little bit of time on the potatoes, if you will. It's the key to your success in fantasy football. It's running backs, and if you got a couple of these first few names on your team, you're doing better than most. And we're going to go through the top 30. And we're going to have names that every top of the ranking. So get us going. What's there, Mr. Wolfang?
Okay. Let's see. Number 1, we're starting off with the trusty Christian McCaffrey. He is, in addition to Michael Pittman, whose dad I drafted before, Christian McCaffrey, I drafted his dad too. He was a wide receiver for the Denver Broncos back in the day, and actually a really good one. He and Rod Smith were really good receivers for that Denver team back in the day. But Christian McCaffrey at number 1. Then Jonathan Taylor, who just, came out of Wisconsin as a sprinter. Didn't get going really his rookie year the way a lot of us knew he could, and then last year he just stepped on the gas and was gone. So can't go wrong with either of those guys. You can flip-flop them, but I don't. If you have to make a choice between Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey, you're probably not in a very good league. Number 3, Derrick Henry. Will this be the year he starts to slow down a little bit? If he stays healthy, I don't think so. I think he's got something left. Another really fun player to watch. Number 4, Najee Harris. Very solid young back. We'll see what he does in his second year. Number 5, Austin Eckler. He was good last year. He was kind of always looked at as a really solid PPR back, which he definitely is, but he's also just a really good running back. And he tends to have more balanced numbers the way somebody like Marshall Faulk did back in the day. Marshall Faulk might he might only have 65 yards rushing, and he'd have 42 fantasy points. Then we go on to number 6, Dalvin Cook. We all know who Dalvin Cook is, what he's capable of, so we'll see what he looks like this year in a new offense in Minnesota. Number 7, Joe Mixon. Back, I think it's been kind of underrated, but we'll see again what their offense looks like with all the success they had last year. And then I think number 8, Saquon Barkley, divisive backs, unintentionally, obviously, in fantasy football. I think some people really like him for a bounce back this year, and I think other people, I don't think anybody's saying he's washed, but I do think a lot of people are saying that his best football is behind him, but that he can still be, capable, but they're just not as high on him. Or other people expect a bounce back, maybe not to the rookie year numbers, but to some very good RB1 numbers. Number 9, Alvin Kamara. Looks like we'll probably have him for the season. And we'll see what, again, he looks like in a relatively new offense with a lot more weapons there this year. Number 10, one of my favorite backs. I didn't get him in my league record draft, but I really wanted him, and that is Javonte Williams. I actually got Melvin Gordon. I'm not wild about it. I wanted Javonte. I got Melvin Gordon because he represented value late. But Javonte Williams, there's no reason for him to be scared of Melvin Gordon at all. He's Javonte Williams, special player, and we haven't seen it fully yet, but I expect him to really break out. Number 11, Aaron Jones. That is a committee backfield. There's no doubt about it, but you don't have to be scared of either one of those backs. They're both worth having. Number 12, DeAndre Swift. Another really good third-year back coming into his own. Number 13.
He could be on the brink of they're going to try to run the ball to keep the ball away from the other team's offense. They're going to try to ball control. He's a hell of a running back. I mean, he's just in a bad situation, but hopefully he can make the most of it.
Good offense.
He's going to
It's a good offense.
Well, they do have a great. They have a very good offensive line, very underrated.
Yeah, their offensive line is. That's what I was going to mention next. Their offensive line is really good. So I do like him. I think I like him for top 10. I like him for top 5. And I being the number 1 back in fantasy football is not necessarily likely, but he's certainly a candidate. If anybody, he may not be a favorite, but he's a candidate that he can do it. Let's see. And after Nick Chubb, we go to number 14, James Conner. If you have him, you're probably not wild about having him, but kind of middle, top tier RB2 is probably about right for him, about where he belongs. Number 15, David Montgomery. We'll see how he's used this year in a new offense. Number 16, Cam Akers. We'll see what that split looks like on Thursday Night Football to open up the season between he and Henderson. We're going to see what that really looks like with them on the field, with Cam coming back from that injury. He did not look good coming back. It's incredible that he came back from it as early as he did, but he didn't look great when he came back. But with an entire offseason, we'll see how he looks now. Number 17, how the mighty have fallen, Ezekiel Elliott. Number 18, a very talented Rashad Penny. When he's been on the field, he's been a very good back. The rookie that's there now in Seattle is going to be breathing down his neck. So we're going to have to see what Rashad Penny can do. And hopefully, that's Kenneth Walker, I think is his name. But we'll see what we can get out of Penny. It's going to be a tough sledding season, I think, for that Seattle team. But we'll see how he does. Number 19, Antonio Gibson. Probably the starter here because his teammate got shot in the butt. I don't think if that shooting doesn't happen to Robinson, Gibson's probably not the starter. They had moved him to be the primary kick returner on that team, of all things. But Antonio Gibson, by numbers in a 12-team league, was actually an RB1 his first two seasons in the league. But as somebody that had him on my team last year, I can tell you, you weren't wild about having him. But he's got a lot of talent. He's fast. He's big. He fumbles a lot. So, keep an eye on him, and then keep an eye on McKissick, and keep an eye on Brian Williams to see when he'll be coming back. He's going to miss at least a month, and we'll see what they're going to work, how they work him in when he gets back. But in week 1, we have Gibson at 19. Number 20, Josh Jacobs. One of the more frustrating backs in fantasy football, because like with Nick Chubb, you can see that he's not like Nick Chubb, but you see a lot of the talent with him, and it can be very frustrating because it feels like he's not getting quite as many opportunities you'd like to see out of him back like that. Maybe somewhere else he would. Number 21, Elijah Mitchell. Number 22, everybody's man they love to hate if you've had him, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Number 23, sleeper favorite for a lot of people this year. A lot of people really liked when Chase Edmonds fell to them if they waited at running back. Or if you were able to add some running back depth with him. I think a lot of people are thrilled to have Chase Edmonds on their roster this year. And in week 1, we have him at running back 23. Number 24 is a back I've been excited about for 2 years, Travis Etienne. Drafted James Robinson 2 years ago as a rookie. And he turned into a really nice little player. James Robinson is a very unexciting, solid running back. But Etienne, with his pass catching and he's got some juice. So you'll see a little something different out of that offense, I suspect, in Jacksonville this year. Number 25, J.K. Dobbins, lost early to injury last year, so we'll see how he looks coming back from injury this year. Number 26, Tony Pollard. There's a lot of people out there that want to see this be Pollard's backfield. I mean, it feels disrespectful to Zeke because he's just been really great for a long time. But Pollard is clearly a very talented back, and I think people would like to see a lot more of him. And I think the same thing can be said for the next guy, number 27, A.J. Dillon. Fantasy sharps are really paying attention to Dillon, and there's a reason that guy gets drafted higher because it's not like back in the day when you go, oh, he's the number 2 running back, he's a backup running back. He sees the field every bit as much as Aaron Jones and gets every bit as much opportunity as Aaron Jones. So he might be just as good a back as Aaron Jones. He's certainly got the thighs for the job. Number 28, Devin Singletary. Very strong finish to last year. Nobody's ever been overwhelmed by him, but he's on a great offense, and he's sure had a strong finish to last year. Number 29, we're talking about the same kind of back here. Kareem Hunt, very special back, put up a lot of big numbers. He's sharing a backfield with Nick Chubb, and it's, that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt backfield, if you take those guys and put one of them on another team, and they both are running in separate offenses, they are both probably considered top 10 fantasy backers. Rounding out our top 30 is Kenneth Gainwell in Philly, and it's incredible because I don't remember reading the name Miles Sanders, who's technically the starter in Philly. Sanders just hasn't done much, and I think most fantasy players, even if Sanders gets drafted earlier, prefer to have Gainwell on their roster. So our kind of lottery tickets are extra players that we'll kind of add here at the end. Ramondre Stevenson in New England. I'm going to skip over one, kind of go out of order here, but Damian Harris. So both players in that backfield have the potential to break out. And who's going to have James White's role now that he's gone? Because that was a valuable role in that offense. Bill Belichick is a hard man to figure out, and it's not always about talent. It's about the decisions he makes and how he decides to run his offense. I don't know that there's anything he hates more than fantasy football.
Belichick is.
He is. He always has been. I mean, Brady, his first 15 years in the league was pretty much undraftable. I mean, you couldn't use him as a fantasy quarterback. He had a week where I think he had 110 yards passing, no touchdowns, and he was ESPN's Player of the Week. Sandwiched in between the two New England backs is Melvin Gordon. Very talented back. but he's playing behind an even more talented back and a younger back in Denver right now. But he's going to see the field. He's going to score. He's going to, rip off some big runs, and he's going to catch some passes. So, and then we do have Miles Sanders at 30. Well, not at 30, 34 sort of, but as our lottery ticket, he's kind of, we have him ranked outside our top 30. So Miles Sanders is there. He exists. He is technically, I think, the starter. I haven't looked at the depth chart, but he's the starter that nobody wants. So is he that guy that comes out of nowhere this year and shows some of that talent he showed 2 or 3 years ago and had everybody so high on him? Does he become that guy again? I don't know. I will tell you this. Miles Sanders was interviewed during this offseason, and he told fantasy football players, do not draft me. That is a quote from Miles Sanders. Fantasy football, I've never heard that before from a player. Don't draft me. So I have a pretty good idea he knows what his role is. And the last we have here of our lottery tickets is Cordero Patterson. And Cordero, he's going to have some big weeks still. They have Algier there, the rookie now. But I think they'll work him in slowly. He might even be still dinged up. But Patterson is going to get his. He's a good receiver. I didn't know, as somebody who watched him play for the Bears and another team before that, Vikings maybe, I'm not sure. He was somewhere else before that, I think with the Vikings. But he was kind of a returner guy. He was a kick returner, and he was a big one. And he was a special teams player. He made tackles all the time. I knew he could play receiver a little bit. I had no idea that he would be a giant tailback. And somehow it worked last year. And he was on the waiver wire in every league. Nobody drafted Cordero Patterson last year. And if you tell your friends you did, you're lying, because he got picked up off the heap. Because it was like he wasn't even a starting receiver. And that was his position at the beginning of the year. So, and the two names that I'll just mention here real quick for me, and Dave may or may not remember this. We played in fantasy leagues together before. I drafted Jonathan Taylor and James Robinson and let's see who else, DeAndre Swift as rookies, because those were the guys that I really liked that year. So I tend to draft rookie running backs. Rookie running backs come out of the gate faster than rookie receivers. Rookie receivers nowadays, it didn't used to be this way. Rookie receivers succeed now in the NFL. But rookie running backs succeed at a very high level, and they usually come out of the gate pretty fast. So keep an eye on Breece Hall in a poor offense with the Jets. But the guy runs a 4.3. He's big. So watch Breece Hall. I'm not breaking any news here. But watch him to crack into the top, 25 backs this week. And he has the potential to put up a big number. And, of course, everybody's favorite is Pierce down in Houston. He was kind of everybody's favorite sleeper, and I watched his ADP go from the 15th round to the 12th round to the 10th round to, he was going really high in some drafts. So people are very high on Pierce in Houston, and he's going to get a lot of work starting week 1. They had him as the starter there pretty much from the jump street. So kick back any of that to me, Dave. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Question. That last name you just mentioned, they will use him a ton. Their defense is terrible down there, and they're going to want to keep the ball away from other people's offense. But they'll run him early and often. And he's going to be busy from the get go. I just had was watching a show the other day, and they were talking about how much their coach there was just enamored with him, the way he conducts himself in practice. That he's more like a 4 or 5 year season vet. And is coming in, Pardon me?
No, I'm listening.
Oh yeah, they were really high on him on the show that I was watching, and they were trying to compare him to, like I said, backs that have been in the league for 4 or 5 years, and they said, do not be surprised if he just comes out of the gate and looks like a seasoned pro. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, that's definitely one name to look for. I mean, one name that you mentioned earlier uh, is who's in my mind here. Um, well, heck, I lost my we'll skip that part for you. Getting back to the AJ Dillard, he is going to be a top five back if things play right for him, and if he was the only guy there in in Green Bay, he would be he would be a top five running back. So really keep your eyes on that guy this season, and if it's not too late to land him somehow, um, that's a lottery ticket. He's going to be a phenomenal back as soon as he's not in a complete. I mean, he's going to be a good back anyway. But
Yeah.
if he's not, if he's not, pardon?
He really has standalone value now as a fantasy back. I mean, he's somebody you can play as a kind of a mid-level RB2 or certainly as a flex. So he really has standalone value now, even sharing the backfield. But like you said, if he ever gets a backfield of his own, it's probably over.
Yes, there's no way he's not a five back. I mean, I guess it could depend on what team that he would land on. But if he were to stay right where he's at, and become the starter there, he's top five, maybe top three running back. He's got that kind of talent, that kind of field awareness. He's just amazing. Um, that said, I don't know if you have anybody else that you wanted to run across the crowd here, but I think it's probably time to end it up unless you got something else.
No, just keep an eye on some of those rookies, Walker in Seattle, especially Brees Hall, Damian Pierce, Algier in Atlanta. I'm kind of going through these off the top of my head, but there are a few other guys that are tucked around here and there in the league. There's always somebody that emerges every year. There is right now, the Bears have Dave Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. They have a rookie back, third string back. I think he's a 6th-round pick on their roster, who's a pretty special player. And it's just one of those kind of guys sometimes that pop up and becomes the waiver wire pickup and has a nice run. And the next thing you know, they kind of come out of nowhere. It happens every year. So we're going to see who that is this year.
All right, my friend. Well, on that note, I think we're going to call it an evening. We got our week one picks out there for everybody. They're going to be online very shortly. And but thank you again, Al, for helping me out. We might explain that situation on some other time. But yeah, thank you for joining us this week, and we'll be joining us in the weeks to come and helping us out. And definitely appreciate that. And just like to wish everybody good luck this week. Hopefully, you get a nice start to your week tomorrow night, or actually tonight now. And that said, we're gonna call it an evening. So thanks again, Al. Thanks for everybody for tuning in, and we shall see you bright and early before week two gets started. So thanks for tuning in to True Sports.
Good luck,
and,
everybody.
We will see you folks next week. And on that, we'll say adios.